Hello, killers, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Killer Author Club. We are delighted to welcome killer Lauren Thoman to the club tonight. Will she or will she not survive? We have tons to talk about, so grab your cocktail and your list of questions, and we will see you right back here.
Thought you really loved me, guess I was wrong. Thought you'd never leave me, guess I was dumb. Waited like forever to be your plus one, but I guess you were done.
I'm sorry, I was dancing.
Hello
is
to all
fun.
our new
Hello.
members into the Killer Author Club OGs on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, wherever you are watching. We are so excited to have you here. I'm Killer Kimberly Bell.
And I'm Killer Heather Goodencroft.
And Killer Kara is still off on her summer adventures. Check out her Instagram. It's amazing. But here in spirit, as we welcome Lauren Thoman to the Killer Author Clubhouse, we will be talking about you shouldn't be here, but you definitely should be here because we've got tons of killer fun planned for you tonight. A reminder to drop your questions for Lauren in the comments, and we'll be scouring them to ask as many as we can of our killer guest. In the meantime, Heather, would you do the honors?
I would love to introduce our killer guest. Lauren Thoman writes speculative fiction for teens and adults. Her debut novel, The Time Slip Mystery All Stop the World, was selected for publication in 2023 by six-time Emmy nominee Mindy Kaling through her imprint, Mindy's Book Studio. Kaling said she was dazzled by the genre-bending novel, which she called unputdownable. Born and raised in the suburbs of Philadelphia, Lauren now lives outside of Nashville, Tennessee, with her husband, two children, in a chaotic household that includes a fluctuating number of rescue and foster dogs and a somewhat alarming quantity of fish. I want to hear more about that. Lauren also works as a freelance pop culture writer with bylines in numerous online outlets, including Parade, Vulture, and The Wrap. When she's not writing, she's probably on the hunt for tacos or coffee, poking around the garden in her flower beds, or buried underneath a pile of dogs. Congrats on the new book, Lauren, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And we are so excited to have you. And we're going to dive into the book in great detail in just a minute. But for now, can you give us a quick, brief elevator speech for You Shouldn't Be Here?
Okay, I'm so bad at elevator pitches, but I have honed it as best I can. So You Shouldn't Be Here follows two strangers in a small eastern Pennsylvania town. One is a 16-year-old named Angie Stewart. She has lived in East Henderson her entire life, and she is convinced her house is haunted, but no one believes her. So she sets out to prove it, mostly to her best friend, because you need your best friend's validation. The second is a first-year teacher, recent graduate of Penn State, named Madeline Zhao. And she has recently moved to East Henderson for a job teaching at the local middle school. But really, the reason she applied to a school in East Henderson is because a couple years ago, her cousin went missing from this town without a trace, and no one has ever been willing to talk about it or investigate it. So Madeline is certain that if she gets into the town, she can dig into what happened to her cousin. And although Angie and Madeline do not know each other and their mysteries are very separate things, in the course of their investigations, they wind up going down the same path and putting them, both of themselves, in the crosshairs of one of the most dangerous people in this town, one of the most dangerous and powerful people who will stop at nothing to make sure his secrets stay buried.
So good. We loved it. Loved it so much. And we have tons of questions for you. So everybody needs to remember to drop your questions in the comments so we can get to them. But first of all, it's time to talk about this episode's special drink. Kimberly.
As you know, the killers love our cocktails and mocktails and tasty drinks. So every episode we ask our killer guest to come equipped with a favorite. And recipes for tonight's drinks and all the drinks that have come before are at killerauthorclub.com under the tab Killer Cocktails. So make sure you check that out. But tonight, Lauren chose Madeline's Midterm Sangria as her special drink. Lauren, you want to tell us why?
Sure. So Madeline is a first-year middle school choir director. And her drink of choice when she goes home and needs to unwind and process is just boxed red wine. So when you asked me to come up with a cocktail, I was like, what would Madeline come up with? She's a teacher, she's young, she's on a teacher's salary and doesn't have a lot of time. So I took red wine. It can be any red wine that you like. I combined equal parts red wine and sparkling apple cider because this takes place, my book is set in the fall, early in the school year. So I was like fall flavors, apple. And then I added a splash of orange juice and some cinnamon, clove, and nutmeg, your quintessential pumpkin pie blend. But I just mix it all together in a glass and it tastes like sangria, but it's cheap and it's easy and it comes together in 30 seconds. And I was like, if I was a first-year teacher dealing with a ghost and a murder during my first year of teaching middle school, this is about where I'd be at midterms.
Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Love cheap and easy.
Yeah. Middle school first-year teachers aren't going to the market and buying like fresh seasonal produce. They are just getting stuff they can keep and put together in a hurry.
I love it.
Love it. So the Killers and I started the Killer Author Club 2 years ago so that readers like you can interact with some of the best suspense and thriller writers in the business. And our summer fall lineup includes superstars like Jessica Noel, who will be here next Monday, August 5th at a special time, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Robert Dugoni, Sandra Block, Geneva Rose, and so many more. For dates, times, past episodes, surf over to killerauthorclub.com. But tonight, we're here to talk about You Shouldn't Be Here, Lauren Thoman's mind-bending mystery that's a fresh take on a classic ghost story. It's also an Amazon First Reads this month, so if you're an Amazon Prime member, run, and right after this episode and grab your copy if you have one more day for it to get your free copy, so do that. JT Ellison, one of our favorites here at the Killer Author Club, says, a hip, fresh, mind-bending mystery with characters you'll love to pieces. Madeline is incredibly real, and her clever sleuthing skills bring to mind a modern-day paranormal Nancy Drew, righting serious wrongs and bringing justice to the land. Not to mention, she's the perfect foil to the jaw-droppingly yummy Alex. Loved it. And that's from JT. And Jessica Strasser, USA Today bestselling author of The Last Caretaker, says, You Shouldn't Be Here is the best kind of dual timeline story where everything is connected and nothing is as it seems, and I never saw the final twist coming. So lots of praise for the book, which we love to hear. So Lauren, obviously you are a highly creative and original killer, but what we need to know right now is, who do you kill?
Oh my gosh, this is so hard and so open-ended. I was trying to get some guardrails around this question before we started filming, and I was like, who are my options? And you were like, literally anyone. Oh my gosh. Can I go back in time? Is that allowed? Am I allowed to kill Hitler? Oh, that's fun.
That would be a fun book.
I mean, my debut was a time travel book, so I'm like, is time travel on the table? But are we killing someone today? I mean, like, okay. So let's out of the political sphere because I feel like that is a little bit fraught, just a tad.
Okay.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. Okay. Let's kill. I don't know. Who was the first person who decided that socks and sandals was a thing?
That will never be in style.
Can we kill them? I mean, I don't know what other contributions they made to the world, but that feels like that was probably the biggest one, and it was also very bad. I mean, or we could. I mean, this is. I get a little existential when I think about these sorts of questions, and part of me is like, who was the first person that ever decided? And I keep getting back into the time travel part of it all because I probably most of this predates, now. Who was the first person that ever decided to be mean to a dog? Can I just kill them?
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah. I think you can.
I am such a dog person. Like I have a dog lying on my chair behind me. You can't see her, but the reason I'm sitting so close to the camera is because she's taking up the whole back half of my chair because she's scared because it's raining.
Oh.
How dare. But, I have 2 dogs. I foster dogs. And anytime we get a foster dog in that has a lot of anxiety or a lot of fear, I always have so much anger
Yeah.
for the person that made them feel that way. And
Yeah.
this dog has no reason for anxiety. She's been with us her whole life. I don't know why she's like this. COVID, probably.
Yeah.
But most of the fosters we get, I'm like, oh, I have a lot. Whoever decided that it was okay to be mean to a dog, even if I'm caught going way back in the past to find that person, I have words and maybe a strongly worded blunt object for them.
I think you'll get lots of readers who will follow you there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love
So multiple reviewers have said this is a fresh twist on a classic ghost story. So where did this idea come from?
The TLDR on that is it came from me being up against a deadline.
As often
We've all been
ideas
there.
I
do,
know,
right?
right? Sometimes a lot of the best ideas come from being up against a deadline. But basically, my editor wanted another book. I had one that I'd been working on for many years that I floated the idea of that, and they passed. And we're like, what else do you have? And I was like, nothing. And my agent was like, come up with another idea. So, okay, I don't know how to do that, but our subconsciouses are really the MVPs of so much. And my subconscious, while I was sleeping, came up with an idea. And I was like, you like ghost stories a lot, okay? What if a ghost story, but kind of in the vein of, so my debut, I'll Stop the World, was a time travel mystery. And I was like, okay, so mystery, like speculative mystery ensemble cast, but ghost story. And I was like, yes, let's run with that. Like this, I have a lot of conversations with my subconscious. And so that was the original seed. Was I love ghost stories. I love haunted house stories. But I actually had a different idea that was like a full committed horror haunted house. And I was like, so not that. I'm already doing that with this other thing that isn't sold yet. What can I do with that that's not that? What can I do with that that's different, that's more in the line of I'll Stop the World and what I did there that would appeal to the same audience? And so I came with this idea where I was like, what if there was a haunted house story, but the haunted house wasn't the main conflict? What if the main conflict was something else and the haunted house is just a piece of the puzzle that helps us solve the main mystery? And so that's where the main idea came from. And because I knew that wasn't going to be my main conflict, I was like, okay, so what are all the things we expect the haunted house story that we're not going to do here? And one of them was that, normally when characters realize they're in a haunted house, they are terrified. And I was like, what if my character's not? What if she's just really curious? And which is how I was like, I think she's a teenager. I think she's 16 and she's bored. I mean, I grew up in an Eastern Pennsylvania town that I thought was very boring, and I was bored all the time, and I would have welcomed anything out of the ordinary happening. And so she experiences these paranormal things and is like, I think I have a ghost. And then she's like, oh, thank God, something interesting is finally happening to me. And while most adults probably wouldn't have that reaction, it felt true to me that a 16-year-old would. And so it sort of stemmed from there. And then again, if the haunted house isn't the main conflict, if it's just a piece of the puzzle and the main conflict is something else, what is the main conflict? And so from there, I sort of extrapolated everything else.
Love it. So, okay, well, you kind of touched on this, but like you tend to write these genre mashups, right? So this
Mhm.
book has like mystery, thriller, paranormal, some romance, right? So, and
Mhm.
your first book sounds like it crossed some genre lines as well. Is that
Mhm.
something that you like set out to do, or is that something that just kind of happens as you're putting your story together?
Yes to both. Um, I read and watch across a wide variety of genres. I highly advise that anyone that wants to tell stories does that, because I feel like you wind up with so many more tools in your tool belt
Yeah.
when you read widely or watch widely. And so, but I have a number of genres that I love, and but also because I read widely and I watch widely, I have seen so many stories in these genres that I love. And so when I come up with an idea for a story, part of it is just this imposter syndrome of, but other people have done this genre so well already. What am I bringing to the table? What can I add to the conversations they haven't already done? And um, one of the ways that I answer that question is like, well, I don't know of very many stories that combine these genres. And so with my first book, I combined time travel, 80s time travel, specific, like Back to the Future time
Love
travel,
the
and
80s.
mystery, like small town murder mystery. And with this one, it was like haunted house ghost story and small town murder mystery. I really love a small town murder mystery.
Yeah.
Um, and so part of it was because I love both of those genres, and I just kind of wanted to see what I could do if I smash them together. It's like a little kid with their Barbies, and it's like, "Kiss, and now kiss." I'm like, I wanted to make the genres kiss. And and part of it was just, these have been done so well. These have been done so well. I don't know that I can bring anything to the conversation, um, just working in this one lane. But if I expand it and if I combine all these things, I don't know that that's necessarily been done, at least ad nauseum, like so
Right.
many other things have. So really, it's my own insecurities trying to like compete against a smaller playing field, um, because I'm so in awe of so many of the storytellers that have come before me.
Yeah.
Well, you definitely brought it. You brought it.
Yeah.
So it's such a great, great, unexpected, lots of twists and turns. So that was so much fun.
Thank you.
And you dual timelines and you weave it together so beautifully, and with the little chapter starters as well, where we get the point of view of one of your other characters. We don't see him a whole lot on the page, but we really get to know him through these chapter starters.
Mhm.
How hard was it to keep track of the different stories, and how did you do that?
So with both this book and my debut, I have multiple points of view, and both times I plot out my book so that I know what the general story arc is, what the storylines are, which character is going through what. But then when I write one point of view at a time. So
Mm.
with this one, I wrote Angie's entire story, start to finish, before I touched Madeline's. And there are big gaps of Angie's story that require me to tell Madeline's, but I wanted to stay in her voice. I wanted to stay in her perspective.
Mhm.
Um, and so I wrote her whole story beginning to end, and then I wrote Madeline's whole story beginning to end. And then I revised to braid them together. And there are also a few one-off points of view in there, like my villain, Doug Raymond, gets a chapter. A couple of my victims, my murder victims, bless them, they each get a chapter, because when I was thinking about how I wanted to tell their stories, I thought about telling it. I was like, do I tell it from the point of view of the murderer? Do I tell it from the point of view of someone investigating? And I was like, no, I want to tell their story, even if the only part of their story I'm telling is the very last chapter of it. I want them to have the final word on their own lives. And so, but every time I switch into a new point of view, it's because I've already kind of closed the door on the last one. So with this one, I can say that Angie's came first, then came Madeline's, then came in all the little one-offs that I drop in. And that's the same way I wrote I'll Stop the World. I wrote them one point of view at a time. And I couldn't do that if I hadn't plotted it in advance, which is a fairly new technique for me. I used to be a full-on pantser who never knew where the story was going. But once, you sell a book and introduce deadlines into the mix, you have to maybe revamp the process a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I revamped my own. And but yeah, so that's how I keep them differentiated in my head, is I write them individually, and then as I revise, obviously I have to go dip in and out of different ones. But the substance is already there, and I can see what the voice is on the page, what the perspective is on the page, and try to stay consistent with that. So I at least have like guidelines to work within, rather than from scratch trying to be like, oh, what does this character sound like, and how do I make them sound different from this other character?
Yeah, I was thinking that as you were talking. I was like, there's no way you can do that without some sort of plot already hammered out.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so and this is going to sound cryptic because we're non-spoiler here in the Killer Author Club. So you have a great mid-story twist, and we're not going to talk about what it is. So without giving anything away, like, did you have that in your outline? Did you know going in that that was going to be there? You did.
Yeah. With, like, for me, so my stories that I love to lean a little bit into the speculative, which speculative is just anything that's not really of our real world. Like, it's an element that is one step beyond our real world. And I like writing stories that are set mostly in reality, but with that element of something that's outside of it. It's sort of the yes and, like the improv class of reality, of the yes and what if reality had this element to it? So that was one of the first elements I came up with for this story, was my yes and, my speculative element, of how I wanted to weave in this ghost story. And without spoilers, I will just say that it was my main question to myself was, what is a ghost story unlike what we would expect from a ghost story? And that sort of informed the rest of it. So so the twists for me came very early on in the process. I wrote kind of toward the twists. But a lot of the ways I got to them was a sort of exploratory process. I discovered it in the writing because I was like, well, this will be surprising. And of course, like later Lauren that had to actually write the book was like, how is it surprising? Explain that to me, previous Lauren that just wrote in her outline, and now the twist. And I was like, okay. I clearly should have thought that through more. But yeah, so I already knew what I wanted my twists to be, but how I set them up and how I actually like revealed them as we went on, because again, this is a book with more than one twist. That was still a little bit of a discovery process as I wrote.
Yeah. Well, you definitely got me.
Great. Me too.
Yay!
Great twist. One more quick question before we have to move on, and we could talk all night. But you, Madeline has a non-binary best friend. Tell us how we should pronounce their name.
Their name is Syzygy, and
Syzygy.
let me look up. I had a couple names in consideration, and then I finally found the word Syzygy because I was like, I want it to be a word that you don't often hear. So syzygy is an astronomical term. And it means a conjunction or opposition, especially of the moon with the sun, and or a pair of connected or corresponding things. And I liked the idea that this character would have adopted a name that was talking about two things in opposition to each other as a non-binary character who occasionally feels more masculine and sometimes feels more feminine. And I was like, syzygy is a great name for this. And also this character is wanting to be a psychologist, a therapist, is really curious about how the human psyche works and all the disparate parts of us. So I was like, oh, this character would totally have adopted the name syzygy. It's someone that exists as an opposition. Yes. And so and I will say I wrote syzygy as the best friend that everyone would want to have. When I was trying to conceive of them, I was like, okay, Madeline is very anxious. She's kind of introverted. She second guesses herself. Who is the ideal best friend for this person? And that was syzygy. Syzygy is everything I put into them I was like, who is the optimal best friend? So, I mean, they're my favorite character. I'm like, they're the ride or die.
Yeah.
They're the one that you want with you if you're going to rob a bank or if you're going to go to plan a funeral, everything in between. That is who you want by your side.
Yeah. And funny, some comic relief.
Yeah. Funny, smart, loves animals, loves people, everything ever. I love syzygy so much. I don't know if you're supposed to love your own character so much, but I love syzygy so much.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's often the side characters that I end up falling in love with.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. The ones that aren't main. I mean, I love my main characters too, but the side characters are always, you can go a little farther with them. Okay, so for those of you who have not read and are now dying to know what that midpoint twist is that we keep talking about, Lauren has 3 copies of You Shouldn't Be Here to give away tonight to lucky US viewers. Doesn't matter if you're watching us on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. We scour the comments everywhere we stream, but please make sure to shout out where you're from. The question tonight for you to answer in the comments: Lauren rescues dogs and has a lot of them. What other creature does she have an alarming quantity of? What could it be?
Yes. So drop those answers into the comments and we'll choose a winner. And the Killers love our indies and we want to support them in any way we can. And that's why we ask every author to tell us their favorite. And Lauren has chosen Parnassus Books in Nashville, Tennessee. And tell us a little bit about what's so special about this bookstore.
Oh my gosh. Parnassus Books. So if you know Ann Patchett, if you know her books, it is Ann Patchett's bookstore. I've never actually met Ann Patchett, so I just love it because it's my local indie. I have been going to Parnassus for author events for over a decade, and they have had so many wonderful authors in store. But every time I go in, I mean, it's just a wonderful store. They have, and they've recently expanded. They've recently added new sections, but they have something for everyone. They have a beautiful children's section. It's just the tiniest little door, just like a little fairy door that you go in to get to the children's section. You don't have to if you're an adult and your back, but for children, it's magical. You go through a tiny door and get to the world of children's books. And their booksellers are so passionate. They love books. They can talk about books all day long. They have staff recommendations. They have local authors. They have book events all the time. I have met so many amazing authors because they have come into the store there, and their events are free to attend. And so you can just go in and you can meet all of these amazing people. I just had my book launch for You Shouldn't Be Here last week at Parnassus, which is pre-launch. We got a special permission from my publisher to do the town book launch prior to the official release because August is nuts. I have a kid going to college. I have a kid going back to school. We have family birthdays. Like, I was like, I am so tired in August. Can we do it earlier than that? And my publisher was like, absolutely, you can do it in July. I was like, great, because I cannot do August. And they were just so supportive. They were communicative. Like, they want to do everything in their power to support not just local authors, although they are wonderful for local authors, but also just authors in general. They care about books. They care about readers. And it's just, the vibes are good. Like, if you're a vibes person, you walk into the store, you're like, I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a couple other amazing Nashville indies, but Parnassus has been around the longest. And I just, every time I go in there, like, it feels kind of like a home away from home. Like, I always know I'm around my people.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with everything. I've been in the store. It's a lovely, lovely store. Yeah. So, all right. So I just dropped the link in the comments. So make sure to check that out, and it will take you straight to the Parnassus website where you can find Lauren's book and many others on your list. So as much as we'd love to invite every amazing killer author to be featured on our shows, there are so many great authors out there and only 3 of us. And as you know, we also write a few books of our own. Heather's latest, Everyone is Watching, is Big Brother meets Clue in a reality show gone wrong. Kara's Under the Palms is the second installment in the Kingsley family saga, billed as Succession on a yacht. I mean, what's better than that?
Yes, and Paris is always a good idea, even if it's not the Olympics. And so is Kimberly's The Paris Widow, about a dream vacation gone horribly wrong.
Yes, and I'll be dropping.
But also the Olympics just makes it better.
I know.
That's right.
All eyes on Paris. I'll drop the purchase links for all 3 books in the comments in just a second. But in the meantime, we're celebrating 2 very special new releases. The first is by Nina Lauren. The Last Thing She Saw is a twisty psychological thriller about a true crime podcaster who returns home to discover that a huge flood uncovered the body of a girl who went missing decades ago, and with it, a slew of long buried secrets. That sounds amazing. And Don't Ask, Don't Follow by Mary Kellicoa. I hope I pronounced that right. When Beth's boss is murdered and her sister is fleeing the scene, don't follow is a command she's not willing to accept. Following her sister may be the only way to clear her name, but it might also destroy the only family she's ever known. So Nina is giving away 1 copy of her book, and Mary is giving away 2, both to U.S. viewers. So drop a comment if you'd like to be entered, and good luck.
Great. And as you know, membership has its privileges. So if you're on Facebook, check out our private members-only group called the Killer Author Clubhouse. In every episode, we choose a name from the KAC Clubhouse hat to win a piece of swag: t-shirts, mugs, candles, totes, hats, all of which can be found at killerauthorclub.com. And tonight's winner is Catherine Holmes. So Catherine, please send one of the killers your address and we'll send you some killer author swag.
Awesome. Congrats. So Lauren, I have some excellent news, and that is you survived to the Killer Author Club. Whoop, whoop.
Yay!
Congrats. We will be
glad I did
sending you this lovely logo so you can print it out, put it on your wall, tell everyone you survived tonight, and that we're
on my face.
not so awful as we sound.
That's right.
You don't sound awful at all. Nonsense.
And that does it for tonight's episode. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and thanks so much to Lauren for being here. And a big thank you to our friends at bookreporter.com for sharing Killer Author Club news with their readers. For all your bookish news and reviews, check them out at bookreporter.com. And we'll be back again in 6 days. That's right, in less than a week, on a special day with an extra special guest. Join us on Monday, August 5th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific with the one and only Jessica Knoll, talking all about Bright Young Women, which comes out in paperback on August 6th. So in the meantime, please find us wasting entirely too much time on all the social medias. And for all the information you need, times, upcoming schedule, past episodes, recipes, and merch, surf to killerauthorclub.com. Thank you to everybody for tuning in.
I guess I'm a killer.